Georgia Northwestern Technical College wants to help put you to work. Our programs in business, health, industrial, and public service will train you for the jobs available today. GNTC offers schedules in day, evening, and online classes at 5 campus locations with financial aid options too. You are sure to find a career path that works for you with our variety of degrees, diplomas, and certificates available. Visit us in person or on the web at gntc.edu. Georgia Northwestern Technical College. Your career begins here.
Welcome to Gridiron Central. I'm your host, Jim Allred. As always, I'm joined by my tag team partner, Matt Davis from 95.7 The Ridge. Matt, what time of year is it?
It is playoff time.
It most definitely is. 7 local teams have reached the Georgia High School Georgia High School Association state football playoffs. We're going to talk about all 7. First, we start with our teams from the greater Rome-Floyd County area. Washington Wilkes traveling to play Darlington. Darlington, the Region 7AA champs. Washington Wilkes, the number 4 seed out of Region 8AA. Matt, do the Tigers win at home?
Yeah, I think so, and I think today that when we talk about these first few games that you're really going to start to see a theme, and the theme is going to be defense, because we've had a few teams out of Region 7AA that have just had great performances in terms of their defense this year, Darlington being one of them. They've pitched a couple of shutouts, Coosa and Dade, and then they've given up no more than 14 points in the last 6 games, each of those games. So they've really performed extremely well. Their offense has been pretty good, and they try to achieve some balance. They're very disciplined. They're well coached. They're aggressive. They're opportunistic, all of those things that we've been saying all year long, and that's the reason why they haven't lost a single game since the first game of the season. I don't expect them to lose this game. Washington Wilkes is a good team. They've had a few solid years. This year they've slid a little bit. There have been some inconsistencies there in terms of their offense and their defense. They're a good team, but I think Darlington's the more consistent team, and they'll win. Most
definitely. You talked about defense. I agree with you. Defense is good. My theme, don't make mistakes, don't make penalties, don't make turnovers, and score more points. I already know the defenses are good. I'm not worried about that. I'm more worried about the offensive side of the ball. You need to score more. Yeah, I think Darlington's going to win. They've played extremely well all year. They're on a 9-game winning streak. Their only loss to the North Carolina defending Class A state champions Murphy in the first week of the season, way back. Actually, it was week 0, if I remember correctly. It was August 22nd, unless I'm badly mistaken. Since then, Darlington hasn't lost to a team in Georgia this season. That keeps going. What I will say, I flash back to the Darlington-Lincoln County game back 4 or 5 years ago in the single A state playoffs. It was the second round. Darlington had a lead. It wasn't a big lead. Late in the game, they dominated Lincoln County most of the game. Lincoln County had a late drive that ended up winning the game because Darlington wasn't too far in front. These offenses, Model, Darlington, and Coosa, all their offenses need to score more points to make sure they're not susceptible for that late game comeback. It's not going to happen this week. Darlington wins at home. We'll have a home playoff game next week as well. Moving on to the other side of Floyd County, Coosa taking on Greene County. Coosa, your Region 7AA runner-up. Greene County, the Region 8AA number 3 seed. Eagles look strong. Matt, are they strong enough to beat Greene County?
Defense. Their defense has been great. 3 shutouts this year, 15 or less points given up in each of their last 8 games. Again, you flip to the offensive side of the ball. I think they've left a little bit to be desired. You know what they're going to do. They're going to throw the ball about 10 times a game, and then they're going to run the ball at you over and over and over again, which they've had some success at, and I know they've tried to create a little bit more dimension in terms of the way that they run the ball. But there have been some games where you've seen Ware come out and have to carry the ball 35 times in a game to give Coosa an opportunity to win. I think when you get further down the road in the playoffs, they're going to have to find a way to work some other guys in and find some success and mix things up, which they've been trying to do. If they can have success at that, then I think they'll be successful in this game. However, I think that Greene County is not as good a team as Coosa, and I really don't think they should have that difficult of a time in the first round.
Gotcha. What I'll say with Coosa, obviously offense needs to score more points. Defense is great. Matt covered that already. The one thing I'm worried about, mistakes and turnovers. That includes penalties as well. In the first 2 losses of the season, you had those mistakes, you had the turnovers. Against Model, they had 2 or 3 turnovers. They were able to overcome that. Against Dade, they had 2 or 3 turnovers. They were able to overcome those. Against Darlington, they had a couple mistakes, a couple turnovers. Weren't able to overcome those. Look, you can't make those mistakes in the playoffs and expect to win. Coosa, they're not going to make those mistakes. They know that it's got a home playoff game for the first time in a while. They want to win in front of the home crowd. I think they will. I say Coosa is going to win this game and advance to the second round next week. Of course, they more than likely will be on the road next week, probably at Vidalia, unless I'm badly mistaken. Moving on, Model at Union County. Model, the number 3 seed out of Region 7 AA, making the playoffs for the 3rd consecutive season, 8-2 this season. Union County, the runner-up in Region 8 AA. Prolific offense. Matt, can Model's defense stop Union County's offense?
We'll see. You know, one of the things I've been told about these teams out of this region is that they mostly just spread it out. And we don't see a tremendous amount of that in Region 7 AA and the teams that these teams have played. So that's one of the things I wonder how it will factor in the games. But when you look at Model, beyond the Darlington game where they gave up 21 points, and remember 7 of those were in overtime, Model has given up 14 or less points in every single one of their games. So their defense has been absolutely stifling. I think they will stand up in this game, but I agree with what you've been saying with your theme in terms of our teams have got to find a way to find some more production on offense. And I think that there are enough playmakers on this Model team and athletes and speed that they can find a way to do that. But for some reason, it's been hard for them to get that clicking at certain times of the season. And to me, this is a big game for Model, obviously because it's the playoffs, but it's also big because these kids on this team, particularly the seniors, they want to prove to themselves that they can win the big game, which has eluded them. I mean, when you look back on it, Coosa, Darlington earlier in the season, both those games they were in, they couldn't get over the hump. Last year, couldn't get over the hump in the playoffs over Bowden. The game before that against Dade County ended up costing them the number 2 seed in the playoffs. They want to win a big game, and I think they're going to have a ton of drive in this game to do it, and I think they'll get it.
Model's coaches have been talking about making a statement all season long. 8 wins is great. They wanted the region title, or at least the region runner-up, to have the home playoff game. Couldn't quite get that. 2 7-point losses cost them that. Look, against Union County, they can make that statement. They have to go to Northeast Georgia. We know it's going to be cold over there. It's going to be cold everywhere, but probably even 10 degrees colder up there in the mountains. Look, Model's offense, I've said it all season long, you need to get 21 to 24 points. Model's defense can shut anybody down, including Union County, and this will be a very interesting, all 3 of these games, because you're going to have spread-type offenses against offenses that like to ball control, run the clock, do it well, and against very strong defenses. We're going to see who's going to win out in all 3 of these contests. Matt and I believe it's Region 7 AA because I believe Model is going to beat Union County, as does Matt. We believe all 3, our 1, 2, and 3 seeds, will win on Friday night and advance to the second round of the state AA playoffs. After the break, we've got 4 more playoff games to talk about. Stick around.
Georgia Northwestern Technical College wants to help put you to work. Our programs in business, health, industrial, and public service will train you for the jobs available today. GNTC offers schedules in day, evening, and online classes at 5 campus locations with financial aid options too. You are sure to find a career path that works for you with our variety of degrees, diplomas, and certificates available. Visit us in person or on the web at gntc.edu. Georgia Northwestern Technical College, your career begins here.
Welcome back to the show. As always, we'd like to thank Georgia Northwestern Technical College for helping bring the Emmy-nominated Gridiron Central to you for the last 8 seasons. We have 4 teams left to talk about in the playoffs. We stay in Class AA as Chattooga, the surprise number 4 seed out of Region 7 AA, travels to play Rabun County. Chattooga's offense has been quite good this year. Chattooga's not the best team in the region, but they're the number 4 seed, but they have done what they've needed to do over the last half of the season to get to the playoffs. Kudos to the Indians for that. Rabun County is an awfully tough test. Matt, does Chattooga pass this test?
Well, I think anything is possible, but when I look at Chattooga, they've been one of those teams that have been getting better and better. They really have, and they've been competitive against some pretty tough teams this year, but there have been some inconsistencies in terms of their defense, and they've managed to give up some points in some games where, in some cases, it maybe even surprised me a little bit at how much they gave up. And so, in this case, you're looking at a team in Rabun County that spreads the ball out. They score a lot of points. They've obviously got some playmakers on this team. Their defense hasn't been the greatest defense, but they performed pretty well throughout the season. I think that it's pretty obvious that Rabun County is the more consistent team here, and I got to go with consistency. So I definitely think there's a shot that you might see Chattooga come out and potentially put a little scare into Rabun County, but at the end of the day, I just think Rabun County is a more well-rounded team.
I'm going to agree with you on that. And here's the thing with Chattooga. Chattooga's a young team. Making the playoffs this year is huge for Chattooga. You get an extra week of practice. You get to experience the postseason, something Chattooga hasn't experienced in a few years now. You get to understand that, hey, the coaching staff is doing well. Chattooga's coming into its own. Can they put a scare in Rabun County? Yes, they can. I'm afraid defensively they're not quite up to par with the other teams out of Region 7AA. Maybe they can get in a track meet with Rabun County and outscore them at the end. Not sure. I know the Foster brothers are quite good. Lots of offensive weapons. At the end of the day, I think Rabun County is a little bit more experienced, and they're going to get that win. But kudos for Chattooga, and watch out because Chattooga is one of those teams you're really going to have to keep an eye on for next season as well. Moving on, Sonoraville reaching the Class AAA playoffs for the second consecutive year. They grabbed the number 4 seed out of Region 6 AAA. They will play Central Carroll, the region champion out of Region 5 AAA. Of course, to note, Central Carroll's starting quarterback is out. He was ejected from the region championship game against Callaway. He cannot play. That being said, Central Carroll has been known for one big thing all year long, and that is defense. Sonoraville has been known for one big thing all year long, and that's offense. Can Sonoraville's offense overcome Central's defense, Matt?
I don't think so. And, you know, when you look at the way things have gone for Central this year, I think they've given up, 77 points all year, something like that. That's less than 8 points a game. And I know last week they gave up more than they typically do, but I expect that to even motivate them further in this game. And they're going to be tough to score on. You know, tip my cap to Sonoraville. They've had a good year. But at the same time, even though you mentioned that Central's quarterback's going to be out of the game, Sonoraville has had some issues on defense as well. Yep. So I think Central will probably be able to score without him. So I think this one's a pretty clear-cut choice. I'm going with Central.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Matt. I think Central's going to win this game. One thing I'll say about Sonoraville, hey, kudos to the Phoenix. They got better. They're a good team last year. Better team this year, you know, and they've played strong. They're not a bad team. They're actually, in my opinion, one of the better number 4 seeds in AAA this year. I think they can give Central a scare. You got to put a lot of points up, and I don't know if they can overcome that Central defense. We'll have to wait and see. Great season, Sonoraville, but I think it ends here. Central Carroll wins. 2 more games to talk about. Rockmart at Calhoun. Rockmart grabbed the number 4 seed out of Region 5 AAA after beating Pepperell in the tiebreak game on Monday evening. Calhoun, well, they went undefeated in the regular season. They're ranked number 2 in the state. Odds-on favorite to, well, not the odds-on favorite to win, that's Washington County, but odds-on favorite to possibly get to the semifinals and maybe even play Washington County for the AAA state title. It's at Calhoun. Yellow Jackets versus Yellow Jackets. Which Beehive wins, Matt?
I'm going with Calhoun. I think that's a pretty clear choice there. You know, it's kind of funny to me because over the last several weeks I've talked to a lot of people. I haven't had the opportunity to see Calhoun play this year. Yeah. So I can't base it on what I've seen because I haven't seen it. But I've had so many people tell me Calhoun's not as good as they have been. But then I look at their record. They're 10-0. They're averaging over 44 points a game and giving up less than 10. I don't even see with those numbers how that's even possible. And maybe the reason it's possible is because their teams have just been so unbelievably good that it's hard to live up to the expectations that you've created for yourself. Calhoun's darn good. They're a darn good football team. I think they'll have no problem winning this game.
Calhoun in the first round at home in the state playoffs. I don't think they've lost a home state playoff first round game since 2000, unless I'm badly mistaken.
Wow.
Look, Rockmart is a good, young, up-and-coming team. Ben Turner was so pumped after they beat Pepperell in that game. He was excited. The kids were excited. And he said, we're going to go to Calhoun, and we're going to see. You know, we're going to go and see what we can do. I think it'll be interesting for a quarter or a half, but Calhoun is too strong in this one. The Calhoun Yellow Jackets win, go to the second round of the state playoffs. And watch out because there is a possibility of a phenomenal third-round game between Calhoun and Peach County. Most people consider Calhoun and Peach County to be the number 2 and number 3 teams in AAA. Washington County is number 1. Everybody, that's consensus. It'll be very interesting to see because that will be a huge game. Of course, that's further down the road. We'll talk about that in a couple of weeks.
Getting ahead of ourselves.
As always, I'm jumping up ahead. One last game to talk about. Cedartown at Adairsville. The Tigers' only loss this season was to Calhoun, 9-1 on the year. Your Region 6 AAA runners-up. Cedartown, your Region 5 AAA number 3 seed after they beat Pepperell in the tiebreak game on Monday night. Matt, did the Bulldogs beat the Tigers?
I don't think so because, you know, when you look at Adairsville for the last few years, they've had a really good offensive team. They really have. They scored a lot of points. But now on top of that, they put together a defense.
Yeah.
And I think on average they're giving up about 13 points a game, somewhere in that neighborhood. That's pretty awesome, especially when you're scoring nearly 44 points a game, which they've been able to do. And so they're good on all 3 phases of the game. Cedartown, I think that they've actually outperformed my expectations this year because coming into the year, the glaring difference was losing Chubb, and they've managed to score some points, and they've won some games. They've got themselves in the playoffs. And so for me, I tip my cap to them because I didn't really expect that to take place this year. But again, I think this is the end of the road. I just think Adair's going to be too much.
Yeah, and with Rockmart and Cedartown both, they did exactly what they had to do to get into the playoffs this season. You know, they're both young teams. They both will have a lot coming back. Talking to Scott Hendricks after the tie-break game on Monday, he said, look, you know, these kids could have jumped ship midseason, and they didn't. They bought into what we were doing, and now we're in the playoffs. And he said, we'll go play whoever we have to play. Of course, that is Adairsville. And like I said, Adairsville, the past couple of years, my knock against Adairsville was the defense. Offense, phenomenal, but the defense gave up too many points. Not so this year. That defense has been stifling. Adairsville looks good. You know, I look at Adairsville, I look at that bracket. If Adairsville can, possibly Blessed Trinity in the second round, if they can get past Blessed Trinity, I'm not so sure Adairsville's not a semifinal team.
Wow.
I mean, I really think Adairsville can make a run. Their bracket lines up. They actually have, I don't want to say it's an easier bracket than Calhoun's, but their bracket lines up better for them than Calhoun's does for them. So not saying, you know, they're better than Calhoun because they lost that one head-to-head, but sometimes the brackets help you. And in this case, I think Adairsville has a bracket that could get them to the semifinals. Of course, that would probably be Washington County. Of course, I'm jumping way, way ahead of myself yet again. Look, Cedartown's had a great season. Adairsville's had a better season. The Tigers will beat the Bulldogs. And I think Adairsville can make a run in the AAA playoffs. Matt, 7 games.
It's going to be fun to see how it all shakes
left.
out.
It is. And, of course, we're predicting that we're going to have about 5 or 6 teams left to talk about next week. We'll see how all that shakes out Friday night. Come to PrepCentralOnline.com. Live scoring updates from our games. Later in the evening, we'll have articles, photos from all of the games. And, of course, next Wednesday, we'll break down who's left in the playoffs and whether they're going to win or lose. For Jackson Witzel, Matt Davis, I'm Jim Allred saying we'll see you on the sidelines.